Good evening, everybody. If you don't know who I am, my name is Drew Walker. I'm the Director of Health, Phys Ed, and Athletics. This is a crazy year this year. We're so happy. I'm so happy to be back and getting athletics started at the middle school level. So I'm going to cover a lot of different things tonight. So thank you again for being part of this. Thank you for hopefully communicating this with other friends or students that are plan on participating. We have a little less than 2 weeks left. We have had a lot of students sign up on final forms, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Um, but I just want to make sure I kind of review everything that you need. If you could in the chat and the question, please ask, and I will review that and answer your questions as I go along. I would love to know in your chat, just to get everybody a little active, if you're able to, just let me know if you're seventh or eighth grade that you're here as a parent for, just to give me a little perspective maybe of who I'm talking to. That would be helpful in the questions and answer or the chat. All right, so we have Hampton Bays Middle School sports. It's beginning on March 22nd. Okay, all the middle school sports are beginning on March 22nd. So that is for the boys football, boys soccer, and boys cross country. And for the girls, it's field hockey, girls soccer, girls cross country, and girls tennis. At the high school level, we don't have a middle school golf team, but we do have a JV and varsity. We do have many times members of our middle school in seventh or eighth grade that participate. Um, so golf for those students, and if there is anybody here, I'd love to have you contact me after this meeting through the email that I'll give to you, or even to phone call, and I'll be in my office. But I'd love to know if you're interested in golf. That begins on Monday, March 15th. So we have had some middle school students sign up for that. Um, but that's the one sport that's a little bit different because we don't have a middle school team. Okay. So just some really important information here that you should all, if you're in athletics and plan to be in athletics from now through your high school career, final forms is something we started last year. It would be new to our seventh graders. If our eighth grade students didn't participate in a fall or winter or late winter sport last year, then they might not be aware of final forms either. But it is a registration program that we ask all athletes and parents to join on and to fill out and complete the required paperwork. We used to, 2 or 3 years ago, do everything. And for the many years that I've been here, we've done everything by paper, and now everything is electronic. It's great because as a seventh grade parent, I could fill this paperwork out and have it follow my son or daughter all the way up through 12th grade. And as they go along, all I would need to do is make changes. If they had an injury or I changed a telephone number or home address, or maybe a contact information, all I would have to do is change that. I wouldn't have to redo each of the information each season. It is required by New York State that everybody fills out the health history form 30 days prior to the season that they're playing. So if I'm going to be playing soccer coming up on March 22nd, and then on May 8th for the spring season, I'm going to be playing boys lacrosse, it's going to require the parents to go back in and complete the health history. And all that would be my signature if nothing has changed. There's been no injuries, there's been no change of address. So all I'm saying is that my son or daughter's health is good and they're healthy and nothing has changed. So that's a requirement by New York State. And that's something that you should be aware of if your son or daughter is interested in playing a spring sport. But this Final Forms is even more than that. It's not only a registration program, but it's a way that we communicate through emails. I can communicate as a athletic director, or a coach can communicate with you. Hey, practice is moved 15 minutes later today or half hour, or we're canceling practice due to weather. They can send out emails to you, and it will come. If it comes from me, it comes with my name on it. If it comes from the coach, it should have their name on it. And it's a great way to communicate. So as a parent, you should be aware of that in your emails, that you're getting the final forms and that you're getting that information. Section 11 is the governing body for Suffolk County Athletics. There's over 60 school districts that participate in Section 11. It's a huge organization that offers athletics to thousands and thousands of students. There is a website. All the schedules are on there, and they're available to you, locations and maps if you need to travel. If we'll talk about that a little later about traveling, but for in the future years, if there's you can go and watch contests at away schools. There's maps and things like that. So it's an invaluable website. If you want to know if a game is on, like next week, or the schedules are out there for the fall season, you need to access that, and you can print and put in middle school girls tennis, and it will pull and give you the schedule for the season. The schedules are not up for spring sports yet, but you can find all the fall schedules that are on there. If it's not on there, then the game is not happening, usually. So Section 11 is really the website you need to know. Hampton-based Booster Club does a great job advocating and promoting through Twitter and through Facebook. So please try to, if you're social media wise, you are capable and do follow that, please follow the Booster Club. They're invaluable to our athletic program and to supporting and showing our Bayman pride and sharing information of important events and activities. And the Hampton-based schools, Facebook and Twitter, we use also to communicate to parents. And as you know, I also do emails through our school messenger is another way that I communicate. So those are all avenues that we try to communicate and try to keep you informed. On top of that, coaches may have their own remind. We have a sports U that some coaches use, which is another avenue they communicate with students. So they may use something else even on top of final forms, but that's something that they feel comfortable with and use. My information is right there, my door and phone and email. I'm always try to get back to you as soon as I can. Please call and ask with any questions. And my office is at the high school. So that's very important information. I'd like to start off with that because we may have questions. A quick history of where we've been. Last year, I believe it was on March 13, 2020, we closed down and we stopped athletics. We were in the late winter season with wrestling and girls basketball at the middle school level. Sports ended. School, as you know, we went home, and so it's been a slow process going back to athletics and getting all the way back with school. Hopefully that's coming soon. We have September 21st is when New York State actually allowed sports to begin. Not high-risk sports, but all the other low and moderate level sports began. Section 11 did not decide to go back to having seasons at that time. Other parts of the state did. They did do soccer. They did try, they couldn't do football because it was a high-risk sport. They might have done tennis or cross country. So other sections did get started, but Section 11 and Nassau County did not. We, though, at the high school did start athletics. We did after-school open gyms, training. Students came in. We met them outside. Everything was outside. We took all the protocol and procedures that I'm going to talk to you in a few minutes. We went through that with the students. And we had a very successful fall training for students and opportunities. One, to kind of cut our teeth to see how we could do. Two, it was just great. I think the students appreciated being outside. Athletics officially started January 1st. We had outdoor track. We had 60 male and female track athletes. Usually it's an indoor track season that they practice outside, but this was an outdoor track season. We actually had meets outside on the track, weather permitting. We were able to get a couple of track meets in between the cold weather and the snow. But very successful. Again, over 60 students at the high school that participated in track. February 1st, our high-risk sports began. Basketball, wrestling, competitive cheer. It was 27 days of full athletics, and we competed in those sports. And that went well. And then again, on March 1st, we began the JV and varsity fall sports, which we've already had some volleyball games, 2 soccer games, and the seasons are rolling there. So just a little bit of history of where we were. Middle school was held off just because of when I start to talk to you about the protocol and the procedures that we're using to help mitigate and to keep students as safe as possible and try to um, go through what's mandated by the Department of Health. We really needed to get through some of these seasons just to see if it worked and how we could manage it. There's a lot of work that's been put in place to try to get athletics going and again, to make it as safe as possible. So I'm, again, very happy we weren't able to do the winter sports for the middle school, but I'm so happy to start the fall and the spring sports. All right, so some of the the health and the procedures and protocols that we've been following since the fall. I'll go through that and what also is being determined by the Department of Health for us to follow in athletics. So wearing mask is something that we are asking and requiring. The students are to wear mask in practices. They are to wear mask in contests unless it is not tolerated. Unless that student cannot tolerate that mask. So I ask any of you to, for your sons or daughters to communicate with the coaches. What I have found from the fall through the winter track, through the high-risk sports of wrestling, basketball, and cheerleading, is that we have worn the mask in practices. There seems to be no issue with that. Even with wrestling, the students have worn that mask and they've competed. We've taken water breaks. We've let them step aside if they need to pull the mask down. My message to the athletes is that we're here to be safe for ourselves, for the people that we're wrestling, for the coaches that are in the room. And when we get to the contest, we have opponents and we have officials and maybe clock keepers or people like that that are involved. So as much as we can tolerate, I would like to see the students wear the mask. They can take it down and take a break. They will take breaks with water and things like that. They can do that, and you will see in games that students do take them off and wear them below the chin. We ask the students if they choose that they cannot tolerate the mask, that they keep the mask on their face, but keep it around their chin. Because when there is a timeout and when there is a break, or they go to the sideline to go on the sideline, they must have the mask on unless they're taking a drink of water. That's what we're doing with the mask. I never thought in the fall that that would be possible, but the kids have really done okay with it. They have tolerated it. They have been able to go hard and practice at a high level and even wrestle with it. We've had wrestlers wrestle a wrestling match with the mask on, and they've been okay. But it is a personal decision. It's also a family decision. I ask the families to meet with their son or daughters and talk to them about what their expectations are. And if they choose to wear the mask, we've had that where they've worn it in contests and maybe a fellow teammate or an opposing team hasn't, but they've made their own personal decision. So please have those discussions. We do hand sanitize the students prior and we try to do after each contest. It is really important that they wash their hands and they shower when they leave practices and they sanitize themselves. That is a great way to mitigate and to stop any transmission of a flu, cold, or anything with COVID. We do temperature checks. We do take their temperature prior to every practice. We do take temperature checks of opposing teams for the most part when they come on in. We do take temperature checks of officials when they come onto our facility. If it's over 100, we will recheck once or twice, and if it stays over 100, we will call the parents and ask for them to get picked up from the practice or from the contest. We do it before you go down a bus, so we will not be at an opposing school and have that happen for a contest and then have to come pick them up. It'll be done prior to them getting on the bus before they go. Every coach through final forms, which I'll talk about a little bit later, they do a health survey. So they take attendance, they take the temperature check, we do the hand sanitizer, and they also do a daily health check with them, making sure that they have no symptoms, that they have not been in contact with anybody, or at least record that. And really the message is if you do not feel well or you have signs and symptoms of a headache, a cold, a flu, sore throat, we ask you to stay home. Think of the whole team. Think of more than just yourself, and that you're there and you stay home, feel better, and then you come back when you feel better. So that's the message that we send to you as parents and we send to the kids. We practice distancing as much as possible in practices. Some are easier than others. Tennis is a lot easier, and we can keep distance there better than you can sometimes in some soccer practices. But we try to reduce the amount of times that and the amount of time that we spend in close contact. So we try to schedule and plan our practice organization around that, and again, try to mitigate and reduce the amount of time and exposure that students have next to each other. Um, we ask the students and parents to help with water. We cannot give them water or have a water jug out there that they can fill up. So we ask them to bring water bottles with them. Or I think the best way is to bring some type of canister that they can bring water with them and then maybe go back into school to fill up the water if they need to. Or bring a full 1 gallon, full gallon jug or something. Bring water with you. Make sure you have it with you. If you're in school, you might want to bring something you could fill out before you go to practice. And then if you're coming from home, you might want to bring something bigger, which you can have. I mean, it is important to hydrate. The students don't realize that if we do have colder temperatures, they lose water just the same, and they can dehydrate just as fast as they can in warm weather. So we do encourage and want them to bring enough water with them. We cannot supply that from the school. We do ask you to help the parents with cleaning the clothes. The students should bring home all their clothes every day, either to get cleaned weekly or and bring new clothes back the next day. So it is important that they take showers, clean their hands, that they clean their clothes, and they make sure that they're as clean for their own selves as possible. We will clean equipment and spray equipment down. We do have um, sprays that we have for that separate from the hand sanitizer that we will take care of that equipment. So those are the things that we've been following. I think we've pretty successful. The one thing I didn't cover is there is COVID testing for the high risk sports. So anybody who's been involved so far with us in the high school, who's been a basketball player, a wrestler, or a competitive cheerleading, they have gone through weekly COVID testing. It is the quick test through the front of the nose, 3 little swipes of the nose. The nurse does it at the school. There's no cost to the parents. We schedule those appointments. And right now, football is the one in this season that is a high-risk sport that would need to do mandatory testing. We're doing it currently at the high school. We're doing football, and we're also doing volleyball and cheerleading. Um, and it is something that has been, I think, the kids have been very good with it. There is a consent form that those parents need to fill out that I will send out to the football players. The parents need to consent to the test. It is a mandatory thing. They cannot play if they don't get tested. You can bring in your own test negative results from your own doctor if you choose. That's fine, but you need to bring that in weekly. And that needs to be, we can talk about that if you choose to. You can communicate with me for that. But right now, we're looking at doing football players, I believe, on Thursdays after school. So if they're in school that day, they will go right to the nurse, or if they're traveling in from practice because they're home full remote, or because they're home that day because of their color, their designation, then they will come into the school, go to the nurse's office, and we will test them. Takes maybe 20 to 30 minutes. They have to wait for 15 minutes for the results. And from there, they would go down. The coaches will take them and they'll get ready for practices. There is really no locker rooms that are going to be used, so students need to come kind of prepared. I do have to say I'm still working on that. Football at some point will be using the locker room for their helmets and to change because they have some big equipment. So we will at the high school. We're doing a couple students at a time with coaches' supervision, and they're spread out 12 feet apart in the locker room, and they'll go in with a mask and change. We will have to figure out something for other students who have to change into some sweats. I do ask if you're in school that day that you wear sweats to school, or you wear something that you can wear to your outdoor practice. And we will come up with some type of plan for a bathroom or something that I will communicate with you on how we can change quickly. But the least amount of change, the least amount of people in the bathrooms or locker room, if we choose to go in there to handle that, the better. So I ask for your help with that, parents and students. If you're full remote or coming from home, I expect that you're coming to practice prepared. There should be no changing to happen at the school. You're coming ready for practices. Practice does start immediately after school, and I'll be covering that in just a few minutes. I saw that there was a question that came up with that, and will be covering that. So those are our health protocol. Again, I think we've been very successful. We have had some cases. All of this, all of these procedures and protocols, it's to help mitigate and to stop the spread of, or to maybe catch. I look at this even with the testing. I look as a positive that I believe we've had a couple cases at the high school. None of it has stemmed from athletics. It all believe it has stemmed from outside. We've had a couple cases, and we've had teams at the winter season that did have to sit out for 10 days. Um, and we've had individuals that had to sit out in wrestling. But none of that did we find spread any further into the sports. I believe if we did catch anything, it did stop something from maybe, transferring to either at home or at school. But nothing that we have seen, or none of the data has come back that it's come back to school related uh, or from athletics. So I think that's all been a very positive protocol and procedures that we have followed, and I think has been helpful. A little bit about our practices, where they are, where they're going to start. Coaches will communicate this as they get into the season, as we get a gauge of how many kids we have, where they're coming from. Again, are they in school that day as a purple or white, or are they coming as a full remote? All of those students are able to play and participate in athletics. Um, so I know it's something, and parents, you're a big part of this, getting those students to school if they are home full remote, or if they're home that day. We are going to have to communicate maybe with friends or families or relatives if we have that available to us. We will have to try to come up with a plan to try to get your son or daughter to practices. So at the middle school, football 2:30 to 4:30 for right now. I would plan those first couple days. Middle school soccer 2:30 to 4. Middle school girls soccer 2:30 to 4:30. In red is the number of games that they have. In a normal season, which is usually like an 8-week season, we do have 6 football games. So football is the one that's getting the same number of games. Soccer would have 10. Girls soccer would have 10 games. So they're getting set at 7. They're getting a reduced schedule. Um, and I would say, just on that note, we hope that we get all those games. This has not only affected us, parents and students and schools, but it's also affected our officials. So we have many officials that may not be participating. We really have taken a hit. Many games will probably have 1 official on them, or football might have 2 instead of 3. It really has been tough uh, on that. So if we have rainouts, or if we have games that we cannot play, it might be unlikely that we might be able to play and make up a game in this short period of time. We might be able to scrimmage another team without officials, or I might get officials from our local school to officiate and have a scrimmage, but it might be difficult to remake games, just so you know that. But those practices are here, they're on site. Some of the other sports that we have, middle school field hockey, they travel to the high school. They have 7 games. They get on a bus around 2:45, 2:50 that leaves from the middle school and takes them from the middle school to the high school. We are doing that. We are going to have a seating chart that the coach will meet with them, and we ask them to sit in the same seats every day. And then we ask them to stay spaced out, and we ask them to be 1 per seat if we can, if not, no more than 2. Depending on how many people we are riding the bus that day. We're trying to limit as many people as possible in this shuttle bus. So hopefully, there won't be that many people. But we will have a seating chart, and they will that take that short ride from the middle school to the high school. Coach will meet them there also at the high school. We will have some lockers available to place some stuff in. The coach will supervise and have the students be able to put some things in the lockers if we find that we need to. And they'll head up there and they'll have practice at the high school. Parents will pick them up at the high school at the end of practice. Girls tennis is going to be able to go right across to the courts at the elementary school. They're going to be right after school. and they're going to, they have 8 matches, which is great. Boys and girls cross country, they'll be at the middle school or at Red Creek Park. That's where they run their meets. But there will be, I'm just sorry, I'm just pulling up the chats. I didn't see all the chats here. So the cross country will, Mr. Arado's the coach, will probably do most of practices around the middle school and around the elementary school, but they will have to travel to the middle school to get ready, run the course, get the kids prepared, and then we have 4 meets. I think we have 2 at home and 2 away, I believe. And then golf. Golf is available to our middle school students. I think I covered that at the beginning. That season does begin Monday, March 15th. And I did see some people put in the chat, and I will try to talk to some of those parents. If they don't know, I see one that has already signed up for golf, but they do bring their clubs in. They drop their clubs off at the middle school. They leave them in the storage area. They will pick them up. The bus will pick them up behind the middle school by the community garden, where our drop off is in the morning, and pick up after school. And they'll get on the bus and go to practice and or matches from there. And they do ride up many times with the high school students, varsity team. Many times share a bus. Sometimes they'll be on their own individual bus, depending from day to day. They have about 5 to 8 matches. And so those are where the teams are. That's where they are going to be. Those are kind of the practice times that you should plan and prepare for. And you might have to use resources of family or friends to pick them up. If you have a son or daughter that lives close to the high school and they're on the field hockey team, or they live close to the middle school and they walk or they ride a bike, I need a note to go to the coach on the first day of practice and let them know that you're allowing them to walk or ride back home. And that's fine, but we just do want one note to make sure that they're okay. If by chance you live over by Red Creek Park, there's not many houses over there, so we don't usually have that situation. But if you, again, we need a note saying that you're allowing that for them to participate or to walk home or to ride their bike. Okay, some of the protocols. And I just want to say about the coaches, we're very experienced. These coaches, many of them have been varsity or JV coaches in the past. Many of them have been doing it for many years. You should ask any questions of them and contact them. This form will be up on our school website. We'll try to get it up by tomorrow, where it'll be access to you or others if you want to tell other friends if they want to listen or get the information. I'm going to add a slide actually after this meeting, which adds the coaches and their contact information. That'll be on there. But that'll be, you'll have a great staff. We have a great staff to work with them. So the after-school protocol. After-school protocol is all the students that are in school that day will head down to the gymnasium. We call it the boys' side. Mr. Peg will be down there for right now to supervise students as they wait for their coaches. He might do temperatures, he may or may not do temperatures, or coaches will do temperatures prior to their practice. But they're to head there. Again, they should be dressed, and we will communicate further if we have a bathroom open or we choose to use the locker room area to have another supervisor for changing purposes. The practice expectation is that the students are there every day. The only way that they can get better is to be at practice and to be involved, to listen what the coach has to say, and to develop their skills. One of the things that's really different, if we have seventh grade parents online, one of the big differences between youth sports and our middle school sports is that it is every day, and that the expectation is that they're there every day. It is a 5-day-a-week commitment, and there might be Saturdays. If you're available and around, it is, again, another great way to have the students learn and to come closer as a team and to be able to develop skills, strategies, and know-how of to get ready for their contests. We might have a bad weather day we have to cancel on a Wednesday, and we might use a Saturday as a makeup day. There might be, I put spring break on there. I would plan and prepare. I'm asking my coaches to try to go over spring break. I I hate going up to spring break and then having almost a 10-day layoff where they might have forget the skills, the drills, and the conditioning that they've had. And I really recommend that the coaches try to have something in that. As parents, we get the students there, that's not a break from athletics, and it's not a break from their commitment to the team. That if you're here and you're around, that you go. If the students are in 8th grade and they're going to the high school next year, that is the expectations, and the expectations is for most sports 6 days a week. Other than golf is usually not a weekend. Maybe cross country is a commitment on the weekends. So it's good that we build that now, and we have parents that know and students that know that, listen, if we're going to be involved, we're going to do the best we can and be committed to the sport to be the best athlete and teammate that we can. And we're going to show that commitment to not only the coach, but to the rest of the team, and that we're there for the team, and we're there to something bigger than ourselves. That's the whole power of athletics, is to be part of something bigger than yourself and be held to some expectations, and to learn a sport and to get some physical training and hopefully get in better shape and to have fun. But those are all very important parts of athletics that are valuable and important. There's a 6-day requirement. So any students that begin on March 22nd, other than golf, which has no requirement whatsoever for practices, every other sport is 6 days, or for football, it's 10. They must meet and be at 10 practices prior to them being able to play in a contest or a scrimmage. And that's all the way up through high school. So being there is very important. Anytime they miss a day, it's a chance that they may not be able to participate in the first game, and that would be a shame, and it wouldn't be great for the team. So there is requirement. Those are New York State requirements, not Hampton based. Transportation, we do have transportation that'll be supplied to the teams to go to their away contest. It is supplied to the high school for the football team who has their games up there. It will be supplied to the field hockey players that have to go to the high school for practice and for their games, and also to the cross country runners that go to Red Creek Park. So we do supply transportation. We will be having bus lists that the coaches will keep when they're on the bus. There will be seating charts that kids will have to sit in those seats and spread out. So we ask them to follow that. And if, again, as I said before, if they're going on a bus without a coach, just like in the morning they come to school without any adult supervision other than the bus driver, we are asking them, and we'll set them up in a seating arrangement that we expect that they will sit in. And if we're told differently from the bus driver, that will be a problem, and we will deal with that, the parents and the students with that, but they must sit in the seats that we assign. Middle school, 5-quarter format, something a little bit different. It's not required that we play every student equal amount of time, and everybody gets the same amount of minutes, but we always get students into a contest. And the 5-quarter format is there if there's specifications from the county that if, for example, you soccer, if both teams have more than 24 players on it, then we can play a 5-quarter format. And what that means is that in the first and third quarter, there'll be a certain team that plays. In the second and the fourth quarter, there'll be another group of athletes that will play. In the fifth quarter, it's up to the coaches to make a decision who plays. Nobody can play more than 3 quarters. We get everybody in. Again, it's not equal time. And it is based on athletics, is based on ability, and it's also based on commitment and being at practices and being there. So all those are factors. The coaches make those decisions. I don't. As parents, the students can ask questions possibly, or ask what they could do to improve or to see more playing time. The coaches should be able to tell them things they need to work on, or if it's ability, or if it's attitude, or if it's commitment to the team, they should be able to share that with them. But it's really a non-negotiable. The coaches decide who plays and when and how long. But the 5-quarter format is there to try to get more kids into the game and contest and give them more time to develop and be in games. And that is our goal and philosophy, is we try to get kids in as much as we can, still within the competitive environment that athletics is. And it is a competitive environment. So we try to mirror those two philosophies and two expectations. Spectators, the New York State or the Section 11 athletic directors, we voted to allow that districts make decisions on what they allow for outdoor sports and indoor sports. If they can handle and manage home and away or just home parents for contests, and indoor what they could manage home and away. So for indoor sports, which there is none now, but just in case there's any students, if you have a daughter that does gymnastics, when we get to the spring season, we voted to allow only home parents only in Section 11. And for Hampton Bays, we voted on only senior parents. So right now we're only we're really not allowing any parents into the gyms just because of the proximity of people and fans, and trying to be as safe and as we can. For outdoor parents, so Hampton Bays did say we would allow 2 parents per athlete to come to contests. What you're going to get from me when we get the teams all set is that there's going to be a pass that's going to say not your name, but it's going to say the sport, and it's going to have a number on the back. And we're going to record that with the roster, and chaperone will be at the contest, and they'll ask you to show that. It's only good for the sport that it's indicated on there. I can't be a parent of a football player and want to go watch a friend at the soccer game with this ID. It's only good for the sport specific. And it's 2 friends, 2 parents that can come. It could be 2 grandparents. It could be 2 relatives. It could be 2 friends. The students can hand this out, or parents can hand it out to whoever wants to come. We ask that you get your temperature taken. If you feel sick or ill or not well, we ask you not to come. A mask is mandatory. We do ask you to separate 6 feet apart. We had a soccer game the other day at the middle school. We have circles on the field outside of our spectator line, away from the field, and we ask that people stay in those areas and that they, again, keep the mask on. We will talk to you. The spectators will, or the chaperone will talk to you if you are family, about being closer and from the same household. But as much as possible, that's a tough thing to ask everybody, and we will try to manage that based on the amount of people that show up. But we do ask that you try to keep as much space as possible also, even if you're our family. But you will get 2 of those cards. We will get those out to you. We'll hand them out to the students to get to you. And maybe that will expand as we move on and things change. But right now, those are the requirements, and those are what was voted on through Section 11, and that's what Hampton Bays has agreed to do. And we've had fans at the last couple games. We had a soccer game tonight, and we did have about 35, 40 people that showed up to watch our varsity soccer game. So it was great, and I'm really glad to see parents and families and friends and get out to see people play. Last thing on the slide, there's an NFH camera system. So we have purchased, the district and the Booster Club really purchased this, which we really appreciate, 2 camera systems. One is at the high school gymnasium, and one is at the all-purpose field, our football field, the Doug Oakland Athletic Complex at the high school, which includes football. It'll include our middle school football team who plays their games there. It'll be middle school, it'll be our high school field hockey teams, varsity hot soccer teams, boys and girls, our football team, boys lacrosse, girls lacrosse that play on that field. Possibly a middle school field hockey, there might be a chance we can get them on that field. And then what it does, it live streams the game live. So if you have loved ones in Florida that want to watch their grandchild play, or friends of the family, it is a membership base for a month. I believe it's around $10.99 a month. It's $60 for the year. If you had a student at the high school playing multiple sports, indoor in the gym and outside, you might want to buy that yearly membership. And it allows you to watch their games that we show. And there's many schools that have the NFH camera at their school. And if they are showing their contests, you'd be able to watch that too for the same membership. So the way that it works, it goes onto the NFH system, and in order to watch it live or within the first 3 days, it's you have to have that membership, and then it kind of goes into like a YouTube or into where you can watch it as someone who doesn't have a membership. So we've had games over the winter at the high school and the gymnasium. We just had our first soccer game tonight. It was the first time that we used our outdoor camera. We're very excited to have it. It gives an avenue to watch the contest. And the last tidbit on that, I'll just over the winter, just throughout just that 20 some days of our winter sports at the high school, we had over just about 7,000 hits on our live stream and on the video on demand. So it was watched by a lot of people. So I'm very excited about that, that we offered that opportunity. So it's something to look forward to as you get to the high school if you're involved with those sports. And middle school football, it'll be available to you, possibly middle school field hockey at the end of your season. When the other seasons end at the high school, I'm going to try to get you on the turf for a game there too, and I'll communicate through final forms. Let me see, any questions? I see a lot of positive comments. I'm glad, people are excited. I see there's a bunch of 7th grade parents, which, so I'm talking to you maybe directly right now, but this is always a great reminder for our 8th grade parents also when I start talking about final forms. So the requirements for them, for your son or daughter to start, and anybody who could communicate this to any of your friends or other family members, or this video that we put out, if you could point them that they could watch this and get the information. One of one of the requirements from New York State, a couple of requirements. One is they must have a school-approved physical. So that physical needs to be approved by our nurse and our school doctor. So if you were to show up to practice the first day on the 22nd and say, Mr. Walker or Mr. Arado, who's the cross-country coach, I'm ready. I got my sports physical. My doctor says here I'm approved. You are not approved. That physical needs to be to the school nurse. The school nurse needs to check with the doctor and needs to get the confirmation that you're ready to play. So anytime you can get that physical in a week to 2 weeks at least earlier, that is great. Usually our physicals work every year. The insurance only allows us to do physicals if we have insurance, and we do it that way. It only allows us to do a physical every year, and that's all that they cover. So once you get that information into us. When I talk about final forms now, the nurse, sometimes myself, will put that physical date into final forms, and there's a clock that runs, and it's for 1 calendar year, and it will send reminders to you in an email 60 days out, 30 days out, 15 days out, and I think 5 days out, that you need to redo that physical. So it helps to give a friendly reminder that you get that physical in. Those physicals are so important, and many times students wait too long to get those physicals in. And we're busy, and I know it's hard to get in to see a doctor sometimes, but as much as you can do to plan ahead of time, it is great. The reminder from Final Forms, I think, I've heard from the parents, has been very helpful to remind them when they need to go back to the doctor or schedule an appointment. But please, so March 22nd is coming up quickly. We need to have that physical in. You might have one already that you did last April, or you did last August, and that physical will be fine. You just need to have that. You just need to get that into the school nurse. You could call your doctor and have them fax it. You could, or you could bring it in and get one from the doctor. So you don't need to go back again. Someone asked a great question. Is it different? So the question was, is it different than the physical that's required at the beginning of the school? So it's not really particularly different. There is one set form that I think most doctors, it's New York State required that they do their physicals on. But what happens sometimes, there's 2 boxes on there that needs to be checked. That the person, there's a little box that says they're okay to participate in athletics. That needs to be checked. Sometimes doctors don't do that. Most of the time they do, but that box needs to be checked. And then there's also another box which our doctor needs to know, which is on the back page. I can't remember exactly what it was. I apologize for that. But there's 2 little things. Most of the time those are taken care of, but you might want to check for those boxes that they're okay. Anything like my son broke their leg and I need a doctor's note to return to athletics. I sprained my ankle. I went to the doctors. from another sport, and now there's no note in my file at the school that I could return to play. All those required by New York State. So if you go see the doctor, we need a note saying that you're okay to play and participate. That note needs to come into the nurse. Um, if I need an inhaler and I need to self-administer my inhaler, I need that note. If there's an EpiPen because I'm allergic to bees or peanuts, I need to have that file that I have the EpiPen, and we also need to have the communication with the coach. And we, if possible, we need to really have it in the med kit, an extra one. I know it's expensive, but those are things in communication as parents you need to have, you should have. It is in the health records when you fill out final forms, and information is there. And I do ask my coaches to review that, but you should have that dialogue and that communication for the health and safety. If asthma's on your list and you had it in third grade, but they haven't had any, anything since then, or it's only exercise induced, or that's you still need to have a note. Then either they're cleared or they need to have a note for an inhaler. Either or, it can't be they haven't. We need to have some type of record. So you might get a notice from the doctor or from our school nurse saying we need that form, and they may email you through final forms or through eSchool data. But all of that stuff needs to be good. So if you've already handed in your final forms paperwork, as you sign up on final forms, the nurse should be then entering the date of that so that the clock, as I will talk to you in a minute, green is good. So if the clock turns green and has 340 days in there, so you have 340 days, so you have to redo it, then you know that you're okay. Red is bad. In final forms, it means that something needs to be done. Something's not completed, so we need to check up on that. So it could be the physical's on file, but the nurse maybe doesn't know that you've signed up on final forms, possibly. So then maybe there needs to be communication there, just to tell the nurse to please look and communicate. Sometimes you've had the physical, but it's at your school doctor and it's not in our file at school. So that needs to be brought to school, and then we could add the physical to your sign up on final forms. So very important. So final forms in health, we can't have them play unless everything is green on final forms, which I'll talk about in 1 second, and all the information's in there, and that their physical is in. So that's from now through high school. It doesn't change. The other rule you need to know about, which is not a Hampton Bays rule, is that there's a health history piece to this. So it's a New York State requirement that before every season, the parent goes back in and re-signs or signs up the students for the sport. So for example, I have my daughter who plays tennis. I go in and I fill out all the forms. I do the health history. I have the physical on file and I sign them up. In 2 or 3 weeks, when it opens for spring sports that my daughter wants to do track, I have to go back in. I have to just electronically sign my name that I know, and I'm signing them up for track, because the window to sign up for a sport is going to be 30 days prior to the season. So the spring season begins on May 8th. So it's not going to be open until April 8th. So April 9th, I go in, I sign my daughter up for track. I'm going to have to re-sign that I'm a green and I'm signing them up for track. And if there's been no change in their health, there's been no change in a telephone number, an address, contact information for maybe an emergency contact, if there's no change, all I'm doing is electronically signing it. And then it goes, which I'll explain in a minute, it goes to, when I'm done, it goes to the student, and the student needs to sign, and then we go from there. So that's a New York State requirement. As you move up through the high school, the window that you have to sign up is going to be 30 days prior to the season. If I play football in the fall and I'm an 8th grader and I want to play high school football and the season begins August 19th, the window to sign up is going to be July 19th. And that's when the window is going to be open, and that's when you fill out the paperwork. The physical will be in there, and we'll just carry on. So the physical, you won't have to do anything with the physical, because if it's been okay for this season and the time hasn't run out, it hasn't expired, it hasn't been more than a year, then you'll be good. The physical will just go with the next sport, and you'll see that. The nurse will see that. The coach will see that. All right. All right. So here's the steps for our 7th graders. If you haven't signed up for Final Forms yet, okay, you must do it. You cannot participate unless you do it. So I'm showing you here. I'm going to use my nice little red marker here. So you go to the school website. You go to right here, parents or student, either one. You click on the arrow next to parents or student, and there's a drop-down window, and it's going to say athletics. So the next step is I click athletics, and I go to the athletic page. On the athletic page is going to be the link. I'm going to press this right here, Final Forms website, and that's going to get me to the next step, which is step 3. Okay, this is if I haven't logged in at all, or if you want to get there, to maybe redo the health history form for a new sport. So on here, on the school website is a playbook. It's for English or Spanish. If you have any questions, you're not sure how to change a sport, if you're not sure about something, you could open these on the school website, and it will give you some directions. You can always try to contact myself, and I can get back to you to help you. A coach may be able to help you also. So when I log on as a parent, I'm a new parent. I go to step 3, and I'm going to go to this area here, and I'm going to go to a new account. I'm going to go on the new account and click that. If I've already have an account, I'm going to go to login, put in my password, which is my username, which is probably going to be your email, and then go to your password that you create, and that then you'll go in and log in and do your stuff. The students, same thing. They can go in, and they can go in to log in here. Very important. The parents. I'll go to the next window, next page. Very important. So parents, when you go in, oh, 1 second. When you go in here to log in, it's going to go to this next page. Okay. So when I go to I push the login button, it goes to this page right here, step 4. It asks for the parent's name, date of birth, and your email. So this is, if there's any one issue with the login, one is, there's 2 issues. One, we forget our password or our login, which is pretty common because we have so many logins and passwords. But 2 is a lot of times we forget our email, or parents may use the student's email. The email that you should use is the email that you look at, that you will have information. This is really important. That it's an email that you use, because a lot of information comes from Final Forms in the form of emails from me or from coaches. And it wants to be something that you have access to that you're going to use. So please use an email there. Right here, I'm going to leave this red button. There's a box. I'm going to leave this indicator there. If you need to put this in Spanish or Russian, or if there's 50 languages that this can be translated into, that's where you would click that box. I'm not a robot, and then it would go to this next window. So that's how you would log in. Step 5 is you as a parent have to fill out all this information. It takes about 25, I'd say, to 30 minutes. It's really important information, but the positive thing is that you do this once. And if you're an athlete and you're in the system, and you do it as 7th grade, even if you don't play in 8th grade, you should be in the system and be able to come back to it in 9th grade. It's there. You don't have to repeat it. In the past, we always did paperwork that you'd have to do each season. So this minimizes the amount of work that you have to do. It makes it easier access for our coaches. You have to fill all of this information out. It's very important that you're honest and upfront with everything that's in here. It's emergency information that our coaches have. They have the app on their phone. If they need to call 911 and your son or daughter hurt themselves, they can pull up information to dial you directly and quickly. They can share this information with the ambulance corps if they can't get hold of you in case there's a real emergency and they need to do some type of treatment, or they need to have some type of background. That information is there and can be shared. It's also our handbook and our athletic contract, concussion information. That is all information that's in there that you sign. So parents, you fill this out, all of this, You electronically sign each one. Green is good. Red means that something was not filled out. Usually it means that a signature wasn't done and you need to go back and fill it in. Orange, if you see this example, orange means that the parent did their job, but the students yet have not signed what they needed to sign. When the parents get all done with this information, it sends an email to the student, to your son or daughter, and they have to complete this step 6 here. They have to sign that they've read the handbook, that they've read the athletic contract, that they've read the concussion protocol, and that they've done that information. So that's really important. You must use the school's the student's email that is their first initial, last name at hb-schools.us. That is the that is the email that you're going to use to them. It doesn't accept any other personal emails. So that way we have some type of, we can cover them through the school. We know what email, we have some control of that. And we can help if there's any issues, I guess, with that. So the students will get an email when you're all done. The students will have to log on. They'll get an email. They'll have to log on, create a password. Again, that should be their school email, will be the username, and then they'll have to create a password that they should remember from now through high school. Okay. So that's the steps. If you have any questions, you can always contact us and we can help you through and talk you through it. There is help. There's playbooks. Parents, as you go on in the upper right-hand corner, there's going to be a wheel that you can press and it can answer you information, help you to answer information on how to do certain things. There is certain period of times that we have login, that we have the sport open. For example, when we start on the 22nd, I might have the sport open for a week after. If I wanted to play, football and then all of a sudden I want to go to cross country 2 weeks later, first of all, we need to have a discussion whether that will be allowed or not, and why we want to do that. So you'll have a discussion with your coaches and probably with myself. But the window for cross country will be probably closed. So I'll have to open that up, or you have to communicate with me and I'll have to open it up or transfer the student myself. Once I do that, if I transfer a student, it'll make the parent's icon red. And that means you have to go in and sign again that you're accepting that they're changing that sport and that their health information is correct. And then the students will have to sign also because they'll get an email after you're done. So that is the final forms information. You are able to change the email information. Someone asked afterwards. That is a possibility. Yes. A lot of times you have, when you're in final forms, when you see what you see, you can communicate through final forms through like a help button, and you can communicate with them. But yes, you can, in your personal information, you can change the email for you. That'll be fine. So this is just a little recap. Again, the steps, final forms is really important. Parents, we need to stay on top of that. Students need to stay on top of that. It's been a great resource for us. It's not only been a resource inside the season, but outside the season. So if the varsity or JV coach wants to get in touch with middle school students about an open field, or they're doing open basketball and they played before and they want to get those kids involved, or they're doing a summer program or summer camp, it's a great way to communicate with them and to email them. And I use it quite a bit to communicate. Games are canceled maybe, or coaches might tell you that they're starting 15 minutes late or things like that. One person did ask, and this is something new to us, when you're in final forms, you can scan or take pictures and you can send the paperwork in through final forms. We are actually trying to train ourselves as that, because last year when we had this, and last year was the first year with final forms, really no one did that. This year we're having a lot more parents do it. So the nurses and myself are trying to get trained a little bit more to look at the rosters, look at the students and look over. It does give us a red number or an indication that someone has sent in information. but that is possible. It might be easier for you to do that than just bring it, fax it, or any other way. So that is an avenue, and we are checking that. If you see something hasn't been changed, please communicate with us, the nurse, and we'll fix it if it's something that we miss. So we're excited. March 22nd. I feel really comfortable with the protocols, the procedures, the Department of Health, the Suffolk County Department of Health, Section 11. Us as ADs have developed responsibilities and protocols for our coaches. You'll see team soccer will not sit on benches, they'll sit in chairs. They'll be separated, they'll have the mask on. I've talked about the practice protocol and the changes that the coaches will follow. Really the data, it's not that someone could get COVID as well as someone could get hurt or badly hurt in athletics. That's always a possibility, but the data from other states, the sports that have been going since the fall, colleges that have been participating, really the data that's coming out is that really schools and athletics is not where any of this really is coming from. It's coming from outside activities or gatherings to no fault of anybody. It's just the way that it's stuff. So I do feel very comfortable in our protocols. I hope you do as parents. We're here to ask any questions, again, that we can. I hope you have a great evening. It has been an hour, but a lot of important information. Please share this information. Let me see if there's any other questions. Practices are starting after school. Coaches should need to communicate to you when practices are. We're going to have to work together as a community and as picking up people. We have, I think, a real challenge for this is, kids who are home during the day, full remote, or parents are working, or kids that are home on their purple white day. We're going to have to really try to come up with plans. If you have people that are driving, if you are comfortable with people driving or other people are having them in the car, we're going to have to maybe come up with other ways to get students to practices. And if we have to get there a little bit late, we'll start a little bit late. The only thing will be tough for buses that leave for away contests. Would be difficult because then we have to leave at a certain time. So I'm always available. Let me see, someone just might have asked one more question. Okay, so COVID testing is only high-risk sports only. So right now for middle school, that's only going to be football. And when we get to the spring sports, it's going to be boys lacrosse. Girls lacrosse is not a high-risk sport as determined by the Department of Health and by the CDC. So it's only going to be boys lacrosse right now and football. Seventh graders, please communicate to your seventh grade friends and families. I'll be sending out more emails. And everybody have a great evening. We really look forward to starting on March 22nd. I do have one more question here. Okay, field hockey. If you were home on that day, would I drop off my daughter at the high school or middle school? Great question. So field hockey parents, my plan was if you were home, I would have you drop them off at the high school. Mrs. Fassini, who's the coach, usually greets the students off the bus. You would drop them off at the front of the school. They'll get their temperature taken as they come on in, and they will go there. That'd be better than going to the bus. And the first day, just come a little bit later, only because Ms. Fassini will probably be down at the middle school to get them seated in their assignments, or I will. And then, then from thereafter, she will meet them at the middle school or at the high school. That's a great question. And same for golf, will be picked up at the middle school, and then they'll go to the golf course, will be dropped off at the middle school. They'll drop their clubs off down there, so you don't have to bring them every day. Coaches will let them in and put them in the closet. All right, everybody, have a great evening, and go Bayman.